American made, allows you to fold up when done, but is the Rogue RML-3W worth the cost you're gonna pay? Rogue does have multiple options to pick from their 2x3 or 3x3 upright for their wall-mounted squat rack. The other option you could pick with the 3x3 upright is the Rogue Monster Series. The only differences you're gonna be seeing is the Rogue Monster Series has a 1-inch diameter hardware and also 2-inch hole spacing throughout. Where the Rogue Monster Lite actually has 5/8 inch hardware, it's going to have a 1-inch hole spacing in the bench and pull section and 2-inch hole spacing throughout the rest of the area. The only time that this hardware is going to matter to you if you're looking to buy additional attachments for your rack. Hold on to later, I'm going to go over some of those attachments that you should buy. With this wall-mounted squat rack being American made, you are going to pay a higher price point compared to other products in a similar space. So Titan Fitness's X3 comes in around $459.99, where Rep Fitness's cost you $579.99 for their 4100 series. But this squat rack's gonna actually cost you $700. And if you wanna add the metal stringers instead of using lumber like I have, it's gonna cost you $805. All these numbers are just pre-tax and non-shipping numbers. Also, we're looking at the 41-inch depth away from the wall and not the 21.5 or the 21 for some models. And the reason for this is because when you are doing kipping movements, you want to make sure you have the most distance away from the wall so you don't hit your feet or even hit your head so you don't take a trip to the hospital. There is an issue with the deeper rack if you are going to buy this that I'm going to talk about later on when you are folding it up. If you are looking at buying the 21-inch depth, I only recommend this for people who are doing strongman or bodybuilding and are going to be doing strict pull-ups, squats, and are looking just to use the outside of the rack. I've had the squat rack for 7 years, and honestly, I've had no issues with the structural integrity of it. And Rogue is very well known for their quality control. So I know that the welds are very strong, and I don't see any kind of structural integrity happening with these welds. One of the biggest concerns with the wall-mounted squat rack is how does the load transfer from the uprights? And most of the load is going to go down to the floor. And the reason why it's attached to the wall is it just keeps the rack vertically. And there's not much load transfer to the wall. The only time you would see a lot of load transfer is if you were doing kipping movements up on the pull-up bar, which isn't a whole lot of load anyways. The only issue, and with any kind of squat rack or metal type of rack, is you are going to see some rusting. I've had this for 7 years, and maybe it's not going to happen if it just sits in your house or stays in the packaging, but what's even the point of buying this if it's just going to be used as a hanger or just a storage facility? Rogue does offer a metal stringer, but I actually don't recommend this option, even though it gives you a cleaner look when you're posting it to Instagram or social media. The reason why I recommend using lumber over that metal stringer is because it allows more customization. So for my garage, for example, is I have that concrete ledge. So I can put that ledger all the way against that ledge, and then I can also move that bracket at the wall up and down. The reason why you want to move that up and down, it'll allow the uprights of the feet to move flat against the ground. Some people actually have to add extra padding to the bottom of the upright to be able to get it to sit on the ground. So for the option of buying that stringer, I would only recommend this if you don't have a concrete ledge that's exposed and you could have it actually sit close to the ground. This wall mount squat rack actually isn't the easiest one to set up. The Profile Pro from PRX is actually the easiest setup, but the problem is it requires a taller ceiling. You would need ceilings that are above 9 foot and above, where this squat rack is actually 90 inches tall, just a little bit over that. To play it safe, if your ceilings are above 91 inches, the squat rack would work perfect. The reason why the Profile Pro is so much easier to set up, all you have to do is just fold it straight up, and that's it. Where this needs to fold back in, and then you also have to unhook all those pins. There is a way that you can set this rack up with minimal effort. One of those ways is not dragging the uprights out, but lifting up on the top crossbar, and then you can actually pull the uprights out from the wall. To ensure that the uprights are perpendicular to the wall, you'll just stick one of the pins either on the top or the bottom. The easiest one's going to be your bottom, and then you just move that crossbar left or right in micro movements to get that pin to go all the way through. And you don't have to add that other pin to the top. It may add a little extra stability, but it's not going to add a ton in the grand scheme of things. An issue with the wall mounted squat rack or any brand of that sort is there's going to be some sway left or right. But a way to reduce this is actually having the pull-up bar attached. And the easy way to do this is by starting one end first and then having the other end slide down the upright. Being a shorter athlete at 5'7", I have no issue with the pull-up bar. I never hit my feet. But if I am an athlete over 6 foot or at 6 foot, I wouldn't recommend this option because those uprights aren't tall enough. The one thing I would recommend from Rogue is having an option for taller athletes to buy taller uprights, maybe adding 100 to 150 bucks, but this provides more accessibility to those taller athletes. Another issue with that pull-up bar is it's not actually tight against the uprights. And I understand this from a sense of making it easier to set that pull-up bar on the upright. And the way that I counteracted this loose fitting pull-up bar is I actually just stuck some cardboard in it so it just sound dampened it. And a big thing to know with that 41-inch depth is when you fold it in, you're either gonna have to fold both of them to the left or to the right. If you fold them both into the center, they're gonna overlap and they're not gonna be completely flush with that wall. So it's gonna stick out further. So for those smaller garage gyms and you're still trying to pull that car into the garage, this is going to become an issue. So just make sure that you have a wall where you can go left or you can go right completely. And this is why a reason why the 21-inch depth might be a better option if you are in a tighter space, because it could fold into the center or it could fold out to the right. Just depends on what you are looking for. There are some accessories. There are a limited amount of accessories that I would be buying, specifically the spotter arms. The reason for this, and especially if you are working alone, is we don't want to be suffocated by a barbell when benching. I don't actually use these spotter arms when I'm squatting. I instead use a drop pad. And you could do a Matador dip bar just like it would attach to any other power rack. But these are the only options I would pick from. There isn't really much you need because you can't really attach anything back to the wall. Some cons of buying a wall-mounted squat rack is that you can't really store your weight plates on these cross members or the uprights, but you can store a few things. I do store those pins for the pull-up bar and the attachment to the wall. I store those on the uprights so I don't lose them. For a wall-mounted squat rack, you really can't have any attachments that go back to the wall. You could theoretically use your spotter arms if you are using a 41-inch depth squat rack, and then you just squat from the inside of the squat rack. But you aren't gonna have those straps that go from one upright back to the wall. That's specifically going to work for those power racks only. A big issue with wall-mounted squat racks is you have to worry about the slope floor and the garage. And this is why I've stopped using it, because when I'm squatting, one foot's actually going to be higher than the other. So it creates more tension on the hips and it can cause more injury. But if you are using the back wall on the garage, this isn't a much concern. But if you're using the side walls to attach this wall-mounted squat rack, this is going to create problems and it could even create injuries. So that's why I recommend maybe doing a power rack or something else in the future that is to come that I'm going to put out. The big question is, would I actually buy this wall-mounted squat rack again? Honestly, I'm 50-50, but the good thing with this wall-mounted squat rack, it is very stable. The problem that I'm having is because I have so much cardio equipment that sits in front of it, so it's actually very hard to move all that stuff, and then it creates more time consuming, which we don't want to be doing. We will be discussing in an upcoming video another option you could pick from, but for right now, check out this wall-mounted pull-up bar, that a comparison of a P3 and P4, if it's not there.